Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question for you. And to my super chat, thank you. Give me your viewpoint and your thoughts. I can't do this without you. And everyone in the upload and the comments section, I have a question that I want you to answer. Eric and Luke, thank you very much for being amazing moderators. I have a question for you to answer. What does our beloved President Mashed Potato Brains and his Secretary of State Bumbling Blinken and his National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and all the highly educated, polished imbeciles and buffoons that run this country, because we know that Mashed Potato Brains doesn't really... I don't think that world leaders or even anyone like the average person, I don't think the average person accepts the fact that this man is truly leading. Okay, what happens, however, you watching this right now, even if you don't like my thought process, you think Biden is a great leader. Great, give me your thought, give me your viewpoint. What happens if, God forbid, China invades Taiwan? What happens? What do we do? What happens? What happens if God forbid, China invades Taiwan? Go type in right now. I mean, nobody is talking about this in the mainstream right now. It's almost certainly going to happen at some point within the next year or 2 years. Maybe a lot sooner than that. China sends 19 aircraft into Taiwan's air defense zone. Sortie by People's Liberation Army Air Force includes jets capable of carrying nuclear armament. Does that sound like... I mean, they've already sent close to 40 about 40 to 50 thus far in the past couple of months into Taiwan's airspace. They've already conducted daily exercises. They're stepping up and they're ramping up the daily exercises. What do you think happens? Do you think that Biden... Because there's no military answer. So you don't have a military answer. There really wasn't a military answer to, although a blockade can be viewed as a military response. There was no military answer. There was no conventional military response. I mean, I guess a blockade could be viewed as a military response, but there was no formal hostilities in terms of a war between Russia, the Soviet Union, and the U.S. during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay? It was a blockade. We wouldn't allow missiles so close to us. And I believe Taiwan is closer than Cuba is to the U.S. No, actually, about around the same. Taiwan's 100 miles away. Taiwan is 100 miles away. Okay? But from Florida, it's Cuba's 400. Well, no. From let's see, is Cuba really 90 miles from Florida? It's about 100 miles away. So same distance, around the same distance. So you got to ask yourself, what do you think Biden would do? Because you can't. They have nuclear capabilities. We have more nuclear capabilities. Talk about climate change. That's instant climate change. So what do we do? Give me your thoughts. Well, you'd first have to go to the UN Security Council. You'd have to make a big fuss and stink, obviously. You'd have to rally the world or try to gather as much support against China as possible. The entire world views us to be at our weakest point. Nobody trusts us anymore. Now, the world respected Trump. They actually did. The media, liberals, the left, despised Trump. But every country, like the world isn't composed only of left-leaning liberal ideologues. There are also independents, moderates, and people who are conservative in every country. Those people admire Trump. Nobody in any country admires Biden. Half of every country in the world admired Trump or respected him, and he was viewed on the international stage as somebody who can get things done. He was viewed as a character, but he was viewed as somebody who was unpredictable, who actually would rather negotiate, but you just never knew what he was capable of. So China respected Trump. Everybody did, a lot more than Biden. The leaving Americans behind, everyone knows. It doesn't matter if Democrats hide within their little bubble, their little public relations, Hollywood, social media algorithm bubble. It doesn't matter. Everyone knows that we've left Americans behind, that they're stranded in Afghanistan. Everybody knows this. There's not a person on the planet that doesn't know this. There's not a person on the planet that doesn't know that that there are Americans left in Afghanistan. There isn't a person on the planet that doesn't know we've left, $30 billion by one estimate in Afghanistan. So everybody knows this. Like, you kind of, if you just read or watch American media, you get the impression that, well, the book called The Afghanistan War is Over, and August 31st was the last page of the last chapter. The entire planet knows we have problems ongoing, a crisis ongoing in Afghanistan. We know this. The issue with Afghanistan was not a military confrontation. It was a manner in which the evacuation was implemented. It was a haphazard, arbitrary date, a haphazard manner, and really the American soldiers, the British and American soldiers, the coalition soldiers, but the Americans there evacuating everybody. And those 13 American soldiers should be alive today. They lost their lives, as did 169, close to 200 Afghan civilians. They lost their lives because Biden decided to spite Trump and arbitrarily, like without any strategy, no vision, no strategy. What was the point of not abiding by the Doha Agreement? What was the point of staying past May 1st? What was the point? Why? Does anyone know why? I mean, does anyone know why? We have no vision, strategy. We have no leadership. There's no, you knew that Trump wanted to put America first and that was his idea of the future. Now, you could disagree with that. You could say America first is, it's what a despot would do. Now we're putting America last. Isn't that better? America first is another way of saying what President Obama was doing, but in terms of different policies, or a different marketing slogan. Biden hasn't even ended the tariffs against China that Trump implemented. Why? Because he knows they make sense. You have a situation now where China sends 19 aircraft into Taiwan's airspace. Newsweek, China Air Force warns away suspected U.S. aircraft on patrol near Taiwan. So they're warning us to pay attention and get away. They're sending aircraft over Taiwan. What do you think they're going to do? And do you think they haven't thought things out? If they do invade, if they do blockade, don't you think that they've probably thought things out? We've left Americans behind in Afghanistan. We've armed the Taliban for years. I mean, 2, 3, 4, maybe more. I mean, we left them 600,000 rifles. Okay? And, I mean, hundreds of I can tell you right now what we left them here. Billions in U.S. weaponry. Between 2003 and 2016, the United States transferred 75,898 vehicles, 599,690 light arms, 162,643 communication equipments, 208 aircraft, 16,191 pieces of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance equipment. I mean, it's like unbelievable. I mean, then you have the body armor, and they're wearing our uniforms. And to make up for it, GDP has been cut from an expected 7% growth this coming quarter to 3%. We are declining as a country in every way possible. But it's okay because Trump is no longer there. Don't you? You got to understand something. You got to understand the mind of a morally superior, almost always apoplectic, but morally superior liberal. They're really wonderful. They don't care. Do you understand? They don't care. They don't care if there's a homelessness crisis, an eviction crisis, the GDP is in the tank. They don't care about rising crime, inflation. One of the greatest foreign policy disasters in American history. It wasn't about leaving. It was about leaving Americans stranded along with billions in weapons. Why would you arm the Taliban and others? Do you think that ISK or AQ aren't going to get some of the billions in armament? I mean, the outrage would be biblical. If it was Trump, the outrage would be biblical. It would be like people would be passing out from the left, they would be passing out losing their mind in terms of apoplectic, hysterical outrage that Trump would do such a thing or would do these the Helsinki conference was viewed as Pearl Harbor. These people were it was performance art. Democrats engaged in performance art for 4 years. It was just performance art. 1958 vintage one, hello. It was performance art. That's it. Allie, I don't have HA2A anymore. I kind of just stopped doing it just because, the algorithm and all that. But I might do something similar on Odyssey whenever I get to actually starting it. But you have Taiwan's defense minister said it detected 4 PLA Air Force fighter jets in its airspace. Observers say the planes may have been deployed as interceptors to head off the U.S. patrol aircraft. A total of 31 Chinese military planes were detected in Taiwan's airspace on the 4 consecutive days between September 3rd and 6th. Okay. This was after... Okay, so there's been a total of 70 planes or so. There's been a total of about 70 planes, ladies and gentlemen, in the past couple of months that have gone over Taiwan's airspace. Because I did a segment last week, and I just counted from news reports about 40 planes. And now there's 31 planes in the past in a 4-day span. So Taiwan's Air Force is regularly heard expelling Chinese military aircraft encroaching into the island's airspace, which is self-declared and commonly used type of airspace not regulated under international law, is skies above the strategically important Bashi Channel, or where American, Chinese, and occasionally Taiwan military aircraft meet. Taiwanese military aircraft meet. They believe Chinese military may seek to blockade the channel to prevent U.S. and allied forces from intervening in a conflict in the Taiwan Strait. But I don't think we would intervene militarily, because that would lead to a nuclear confrontation. So I don't see, like, we have a better Navy, but they have the geography, and they have a good Navy too. They have a very good Navy. They've been building up. See, Xi of China is like 10 trillion times more strategic and more intelligent and more prepared than mashed potato brains and his bumbling band of highly polished, extremely educated buffoons. He's like, do you think these? You think who do you think would win in a chess match? Xi or Biden? Biden, mashed potato brains, probably couldn't even win in a game of checkers with, like, a 10-year-old. This man is, like, completely, the lights are on, but nobody's home. Everyone knows this. So what happened was the absolute hysteria, the manic, hysterical, apoplectic reaction to Trump for 4 years made them completely disregard reality, so they didn't care. They're like, yeah, he's good. You know what? Trump. We have this psychiatrist here, and Trump says she says that Trump is lost his mind. The 25th Amendment. We should get him out. He lost his mind. He's not, and so he never, like, that's the way they feel about anyone who has a different personality from them. Democrats are like the teacher in the room that calls the parents and say, it's a big problem. This person, your kid is, not paying attention. And I mean, I guess that's normal and fine, whatever. But like, it's, drawing in class when he should be writing notes. It's a big problem. It's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. Or like, just because you have a different personality nowadays, it's like it's a huge problem. This is the thing. There's such a demand for conformity while at the same time accepting everybody's differences. It's really a bizarre world we live in now. Like, you have to have the same type of personality. If you deviate just a little bit, oh my God, he's completely gone mad. Trump is deranged. Like, this is all about their sensibilities. It was always about their sensibilities. I kept saying this for a long time. It had nothing, none of this had anything to do with, like, the reason they didn't like Trump was not about Trump's policies. The reason they didn't like Trump was because he was very effective at reversing a lot of their failed policies, and they couldn't stand that. So they had to focus on his social media account. They had to focus on, we had record low unemployment. And Bill Maher, who's now kind of turning a corner, kind of, I mean, he didn't like Trump because they went at it personally. But Bill Maher, when we had record low unemployment, was talking about saving our democracy and mentioning even like a recession. Well, we had infinitely more than that. But I mean, you have a situation where there are people who would rather have a dystopian, nightmarish world than have Trump back as president. We had record low unemployment throughout most of Trump's tenure. We didn't have these complete disasters in terms of foreign policy. Complete and unbelievable disasters. We have Americans still there. So we have Americans still stranded. Why haven't we brought them out already? I mean, you would think that this is all, you would think that the greatest country in the world, the most powerful military, well, we used to have the most resources and money at our disposal, but that's quickly drying up. But you would think the most powerful country on the planet wouldn't leave even one person behind. But they don't care. They have the audacity of saying, well, we notified them 19 times. Okay, I was at the bakery today. I went to the bakery, okay? And there were like 8 people. And there was confusion as to, like, so I just like went and got a ticket, even though it was like a bakery in a supermarket where it's like it's not usually crowded, but there happened to be like 8 people or 9 people, and everyone was like, it was like kind of like the honor system, but I was like, I'm going to take a ticket, so this way, like, I'll just be waving this ticket, and so like that's like kind of like a marker that can show that I'm there before a certain, I don't know. So, and they don't even really ask for the tickets, whatever. But in my head, I was like, this is disorganized now. People are kind of like trying to, I mean, most of the people were nice, but you could tell, like, people were like, getting antsy, and a couple of them weren't sure who was first. You had 120,000 people in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You had 120,000 people in 2 weeks, all because Biden wouldn't start evacuating in January. $124,000 people. $124,000 people in the span of 1 month or so. And it's like, you had to, like, why couldn't you in January when you were sworn in, why couldn't you simply start evacuating then? Why couldn't Biden simply start evacuating then? All he had to do was start evacuating then. That's all he had to do. He chose not to. Everyone viewed that as weakness. Weakness is not just about military strength. It's about strategy. But like mashed potato brains and his bumbling band of fools and imbeciles have zero strategy. They have no concept of strategic thought, leadership, a vision for the future. Where do they want us to be in 2 or 3 years? I mean, that's the question to ask. Where do they want us to be in 2 to 3 years economically in terms of foreign policy? In terms of foreign policy, where do they want us to be? I don't know. Where do they want us to be in a year? They lowered estimates for GDP. This is bad. The job numbers were worse than expected. This is bad. Inflation keeps rising up. This is horrible. Prices keep rising. This is terrible. Okay? Economically, we're not doing what we need to do. There's an eviction moratorium that will end in people who are facing eviction because of Democratic policies. I mean, generally you can't blame either side 100%, but it's virtually 100% the Democratic Party's fault. Virtually 100%. That's why you have Newsom being recalled. That's why you have Andrew Cuomo kicked to the curb. And it wasn't about his despicable behavior. Democrats knew about that. They didn't care. It wasn't about his despicable behavior. It was about him being a huge liability for 2022, and they're going to get decimated in 2022. And never Trumpers will be primaried out. Never Trumpers will be primaried out. But where is his, does he, if you look at this man, Trump had a vision of leadership. If you want to call it America First, whatever you want to call it, nationalism, whatever you want to call it, he had a game plan, a strategy, a blueprint. You might not like it, but we had record low unemployment, the Doha Agreement. He was the first president to step foot in North Korea and begin a détente between North and South Korea. These are all good things. You could disagree with them. You could say, well, they're not really that good, but he got things done. Okay, Biden did not get the evacuation done. And Trump also, Abraham Accords. Biden did not get the evacuation done. The American soldiers were given an impossible task. Those soldiers should be, rewarded, given some kind of special honor. Could you imagine the chaos? Could you imagine every single day seeing the heart-wrenching scenes of families trying to get in, of children? I mean, where's the outrage? Where is the outrage? Where's AOC looking into the chain link fence? Where's that photo shoot? Like she wasn't outside the she wasn't looking at the T-ban as they were vetting Americans with lists of names. Remember AOC's photo, the photo op, the propaganda spin where she's looking into the horizon and you just don't know what she's looking at, because if you actually did see what she was looking at, it would be nothing like the historical time period that she tried to completely distort in a shameless political stunt that Yad Vashem refuted. This is like Democrats get away with everything. They're the first people to talk about history, and they are so ignorant when it comes to history. It's unbelievable. But it's like, you look, ladies and gentlemen, and you got to ask yourself, where do we go from here? I mean, how much more, how worse could it get? I think it can get a lot worse, because now you have people who will test us. Now you have people who will test us. Now you have leaders in the world who will test us. And, I mean, this is what takes place when you have, when you're unable to do, like, Trump gave Biden a gift called the Doha Agreement. It was a gift. It was simply a gift, okay? Was abide by the agreement. Abide by the agreement, and he could have then taken credit for everything. But he didn't do that. He didn't want to do that. So, Taiwan warns Honduras against flashy, false China promises. I mean, you get this. Chinese pop star... hold on one second. Chinese pop star Luhan has announced that he cut ties with the Swiss luxury watch brand over their CEO's comments about Taiwan, the Associated Press reports. So he stated Taiwan was an ultra-modern high-tech country. So, national interests are above all else. Luhan and Luhan Studios will defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity. So this happens all the time. And so, hold on, let's see this. How many Americans or allies are left in Afghanistan? Factcheck.org. Let's see. So does it? We believe there is still a small number of Americans, under 200, likely closer to 100, who remain in Afghanistan and want to leave. I've heard 500 today on Fox News. We're trying to determine exactly how many. So Blinken contradicts himself within the statement. We're trying to find out exactly how many, and then he gives a ballpark that's a small number, under 200, closer to 100. Well, that's not really reassuring. Whatever they say, multiply it times 5. Unfortunately. What happens now? So, this is a factcheck.org article. It doesn't even check any facts. Like, there's nobody knows. So, according to the Washington Post, the starting point list was culled by a team of hundreds of State Department officials. Some of the people were determined to have already left. Some had never been in the country. What? And some were not actually U.S. citizens, the Post reported. As we noted earlier, Biden said troops had facilitated the evacuation of about 5,500 Americans before the last American troop left. Now we believe there are about 100, 200 Americans remain in Afghanistan with some intention to leave. What a lie. How about with every intention to leave and we left them there? This is the way they work. It's a lie by omission. It's a lie by omission. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. It's a complete lie by omission. This is what they do. They're like, well, these officials say this. So what? Blinken doesn't even know. He already said he doesn't know. So, how is this a factcheck.org article? How can they check any facts when the State Department doesn't even know any facts? And you better believe all of media would be focused like a laser. I mean, focused like a laser. Just a laser. Taiwan says 19 Chinese planes entered air defense zone. I mean, you can look. Just every day type in China and Taiwan. You can see that there are tensions building. Char, thank you. Char West, thank you. You could see there are tensions building everywhere. You could see that there are tensions building. And so Taiwan scrambles jets against renewed Chinese military activity. This is happening all the time. So you have to ask yourself, what will China do? And how will the U.S. respond? They would have to initially, Biden would have to build support internationally. But who is going to face, what country is going to face the economic repercussions of going up against China? Because we're the number one economy in the world. Still, barely. Let's see, global economic ranking. We're number one in the world. Then it's China, not far behind. Then Japan, Germany, UK, and France. So China has a tremendous amount. China's economy is almost three times as large as Japan's. So over 3 times as large as Germany's. Over 4 times as large as the UK's and France. So how are they going to go ahead and respond? You would have to. So the world would condemn it, or the United Nations would condemn the invasion, but the UN Security Council, you would have Russia, who could side with China, and I believe you need a unanimous vote in the UN Security Council for any UN Security Council resolution. So, no. Okay, how many votes are needed in the Security Council? Each member of the Security Council has 1 vote. So there are 5 permanent members, and then you have like other nations that rotate just throughout the world. Article 27 provides the decisions of the Security Council are made by an affirmative vote of 9 members. All right. So, whereas each member has the Charter distinguishes, however, between votes on procedural matters and votes on all other matters. So, I'm not exactly sure how. I'm not exactly sure what would take place, because you would have Russia and China probably done starting it off, my man. Howdy, HA, do you think it's our responsibility to police rule? No, not at all. Don, the chooser, thank you. I don't. I've written against counterinsurgency conflicts, Don. If you go to hagoodman.com, you could read my writing in The Hill, the Huffington Post, the Roanoke Times, the Jerusalem Post, against counterinsurgency conflicts. I'm against interventions, military interventions, and regime changes, and these counterinsurgency wars that we've faced since Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. These endless counterinsurgency conflicts. So, that's something that I'm very passionate about, because we should have learned the lessons of Vietnam before we should have learned the lessons of the Soviets in Afghanistan. Dom, thank you. I definitely don't think it's our responsibility. I don't even think now we have the money to do so anymore. Our economy for so long has been doing so well, and now you have this paranoid response to a global health issue. And it's an issue that primarily affects older people with pre-existing conditions, yet all of society has to be obsessed over this. Even though more people lost their lives from cancer and heart disease, this is like a mass delusion. I mean, it's a serious issue, but so is cancer and heart disease. Why doesn't CNN or MSNBC talk about cancer or heart disease? Because it's not. The ratings would tank even further for them. So they went from obsessing over Trump's tweets to this. The problem, however, is that you can't rebound as an economy. Don, thank you. Thank you. No, I'm not a true conservative. No. Whatever that means. But I am conservative very much on the Second Amendment. And I don't want endless military intervention, so... But I'm liberal on immigration. So... somewhat liberal. But... not a true conservative. I used to be the biggest Bernie... I always say that. I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. So, I support President Trump, not because he's conservative. Well, no, I lean towards a conservative viewpoint a lot more than I ever have in my life on a lot of things. But I'm not a conservative on every issue, no. But then again, it's like President Trump isn't necessarily a conservative on every issue. Anyway, Don, I definitely don't think that we should police the world at all. I think that is a horrible foreign policy. I think that's a foreign policy that leads to disaster. That can only lead to disaster. I think that's the reason that we stayed for 20 years. Bush, Cheney, the Lincoln Project people. I don't know, the Lincoln Project, real conservatives? I think not, but they've marketed themselves as true Republicans and conservatives. I think the worst president of all time was Bush. I think Trump was one of our great presidents, or best president of my lifetime, if you look at what he did. But I say that not because he's a Republican. I say that because he was able to accomplish a great deal with the entire United States government and media against him. He was able to do so many great things. And he never got credit for them because they were after him from day one. Could you imagine if Biden's inauguration had, like the day of his inauguration, there were just protests everywhere. They talk about January. It's okay. You know what? That was a horrendous day. But imagine, like, if you had all of Hollywood against Biden. Imagine if you had all of media. Imagine if he had 92% negative media coverage. Red syrup, hello. Red syrup, hello. Yeah, I mean, hello, everybody. Colleen. 4, hello. Biden is already one of the worst presidents. I think Bush is the worst president of all time, George W. Bush. But Biden is... how does he go from here? How does Biden get better? So the economy, they say that the moment in time, it's actually the time period in history that makes leaders, how they deal with and respond to their moment in history. Mashed potato brains has already failed his test. So where does he go from here? He's already failed his test. So William Fabe, thank you. Thank you, William. Where does Biden go from here? And what on earth can happen next? I know, Libra, it's early. It is. Bush, I think, is the worst president of all time. George W. Bush. Jimmy Carter. See, I don't really like. For me, it's not Republican or Democrat. Just look where they left the country. Look where Jimmy Carter left the country. Or look what his legacy was. Jimmy Carter's legacy was 12 years of Republican rule, if you look at it from a Democratic vantage point. 12 years of Republican rule. Jimmy Carter was not a good president. We had a terrible economy. We had a horrible international crisis that, God forbid, I mean, I don't even want to get into the possibilities in Biden's inept and completely failed presidency already. But Jimmy Carter has to be one of the worst. Biden's already one of the worst. George W. Bush is the worst. I mean, you could look back in history. Then, of course, there's you can look back in history. Herbert Hoover, one of the worst ever. So, president during the start of the Depression. So, you can look back. But, I mean, right now, I think it's important to ask, what is Biden's vision? Like, what is his vision for the country? What is his vision for the country? You know, like, where does he want us to be economically in 1 or 2 years? Have you ever heard any Democrats say in 2 or 3 years, we want the economy to be here? We want people to be working, you know. We want a rebound that would consist of this type of economy. All you get is complaints. AOC, Bernie Sanders, I just want to let you know, billionaire. The ICBMs will be flying above. It'll be the end of the planet. Bernie and AOC will go, oh, yeah, you know what? It's not fair, the billionaire class. It's like, well, yeah, but you've tanked the economy. You don't let people work to keep them safe. They keep complaining, and it's like they don't let them work. So, let's look here at... Let's type in Joe Biden. Let's type in Trump. Let's see what's going on here. Nice. Donald Trump's son to provide commentary on Evander Holyfield, Vitor Belfort alternate telecast. Nice. That's what he has to do. That's the type of thing that President Trump has to do. That's perfect. It would be such an honor. Gold Star mom invites Trump to son's funeral. Trump should go. President Trump should go. My God, he should go. And this is like one of the few, like, Trump loses weight post-presidency, ditches spray tan for Florida sun. Like, that's like something you would something you kind of would never see. Democrats bet big against Trump in fall contest. Trump isn't on the ballot this fall, but some Democrats are acting like he is. Yeah, you know what? Go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do that, because Biden is now rivaling Biden just with all of media propping him up. There are more people who can't stand Biden. Exactly. Char, West, exactly. All the Trump should go. I agree. Let's look at Joe Biden before we head out. Biden dismisses Northeast protesters who heckled him. They don't understand. Oh, okay. Do you understand anything? None of them were shouting or complaining, Biden's. Every one of them was thanking me, and then you hear, and you see, then you actually see the video and hear like people heckling him. The stream as a last indignation right before I'm leaving this stream. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much to my super chat. Thank you. Don, thank you. I'll be here. I'll be back here tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Be here tomorrow at around 2 p.m. And thanks, everybody. I might do an upload. No, I'll do a live stream tomorrow. I'll do 3 live streams a day. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much. I will see you tomorrow at around 2 p.m. And Eric and Luke, thank you so very much. God